Hello everybody, what's up? I hope all of you are having an amazing day or evening. Today, based on the title of this video, we're going to be focusing on negative thinking. And I think that this video will resonate a lot with my overthinkers out there like myself. So, I personally believe that a lot of us are really beginning to listen to that negative voice inside of our heads that is preventing us from becoming the better version of ourselves and from easing the anxiety or from finding the relief that we may actually want or need. Now, I just want to say that if you are someone who is experiencing that negative voice inside of your head that is really causing that doubt, that uncertainty, that fear, anxieties, you are not alone at all. All of us, to a certain extent, have that negative voice inside of our heads. And I personally believe that our bigger social media culture makes it seem as though if you are having negative thoughts, that there's one, something wrong with you, or that two, you need to seek professional help. And now I just want to say that I'm all for seeking professional help. Been there, done that. I think it's amazing. But I also truly believe and know that humans, you and I, are so capable of creating change for ourselves, of clearing out that negative funk that is living inside of us. And so my hope with this video is to go into some tips and strategies that I have accumulated along the way that have really helped me calm that really loud negative voice that lives inside of me. So let's get into tip number one. So the first tip that I have that has been super helpful for me is pattern disrupting. So it's this idea that before you go into your negative thought pattern spiral, you actually interrupt those negative thoughts so that you don't even have to go into that spiral or go as deep as you normally perhaps would. And so, for example, I'm sure many of us have thought patterns of, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, they're gonna judge me, they're gonna think I'm weird, and this and that, and we go into so many back and forths inside of our mind. And so when that pattern and that spiral begins to happen, you consciously decide that, hey, this is not serving me in any way, it's not making the anxiety go away, in fact, it's probably making it worse. And so in that moment, you consciously decide that you're not going to think this way anymore, and you interrupt your thought patterns. Now, I do want to say that just because you interrupt your negative thought patterns once, twice, 3 times, doesn't mean that they're going to cease to exist. It just means that with a lot of practice of pattern interrupting, you will become better at quieting that negative voice that's living inside of you. You will become better at really acknowledging the thought, but not letting it derail you from your day-to-day activities in your day-to-day life. And that's what we want, right? Our negative voice isn't something bad. It's actually there to protect us. But of course, throughout years of evolution, it has really caused a lot of stress because there's so much going on up here that we really don't understand. And so interrupting that thought pattern before it even has a chance to bring us down and to make us feel really hopeless is super, super helpful. The second tip that has been extremely useful for me is just recognizing that I am not my thoughts and you are not your thoughts. We do not have to believe all of the thoughts that we have. So for example, if I have a negative or a disturbing thought like, I want to hurt a baby, which I don't. But if I did have that thought, right? And if I resonated with it, I might be living inside of my brain thinking, oh my God, I'm so sick. Why would I want to hurt a baby? Is something wrong with me? And you go into that spiral, right? But instead of engaging in that thought pattern that was initially intrusive and kind of negative and maybe even disgusting, weird, scary, whatever it was, you decide that hey, you're just gonna let the thought be. Because the more energy, mental, emotional energy that you give to that specific negative, weird, disgusting, horrific thought, the bigger that it's going to actually get. And so we want to starve that thought pattern, right? By not giving it our attention and our energy and our focus. That perspective really helps you judge your thoughts less. And eventually those negative thoughts of, for example, I want to hurt a baby, because I'm not giving it that attention and energy and focus that my brain is telling me that I need to give it, and I'm kind of just like, oh, it is what it is, that thought will eventually kind of go away and get quieter and quieter. So just know that your focus is going to make things grow inside of your mind, or it's going to make them kind of shrivel up. So if you continue to really identify as your thoughts, you're going to increase those negative thoughts. So instead, we're going to shift from understanding that we are the thinkers, we are the higher beings who are able and capable of having thoughts that aren't actually who we are. Now, the third tip that has been super useful as well is this idea of naming your negative thoughts. So for example, some of you may have thoughts of like, oh my gosh, I have so many things to do today. I didn't get this done, I didn't get that done, and blah, 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 right? Just like we all do. So if you are one of those people that is having that, maybe you can name anytime you have those thought patterns pertaining to your to-do list, you can name that thought pattern your to-do list thought pattern. So when it comes up, you're kind of just like, oh, it's my to-do list thought pattern that's coming up, whatever, it's nagging me again, or, oh, my anxiety thought pattern is coming up, or that's my fear voice that's speaking to me right now. When you name your thoughts, you begin to realize that you, in fact, are not your thoughts. You are the thinker of those thoughts. Those thoughts are not you. And so, something else that I think correlates with this is this idea that whenever you have that voice that is speaking inside of your brain that's kind of disturbing, alarming, harmful to you, just understand that that is your fear voice that is speaking. That has been a super helpful way for me to name my insecurities, my doubts, my uncertainties that come up, because I automatically remind myself that that is in fact my fear voice that is speaking. And why I call it the fear voice is because it really just goes back to evolutionary times. This idea that during those times, we did have to be fearful, right? In order to survive and thrive and make sure that we were able to spread our seeds and grow as a human race. And so that evolutionary brain is really where that fear voice comes into play. And it chatters and it makes a lot of noise. It makes us feel stuck and uncertain about our lives. But essentially, if we really break it down, that's where our fear voice is coming from. I personally don't want to live in my fear voice. I want to live in my soul's voice. And my soul's voice is the actual voice that knows my truths, my values, who I actually am, and what I want from life. Some people might call this the inner knowing, your gut feeling, your intuition, God, the universe speaking to you. Whatever the case is, I personally find it really helpful to name my fear voice and then to name my soul's voice as a way for me to differentiate which one I actually would like to listen to and follow. The fourth tip that I think a lot of the world has been using and has found to be super helpful is mindfulness. This idea of living in the present and only dipping into the past or into the future when we really need to. A lot of the time, our negative thoughts come from our past experiences. So for example, you might find yourself saying like, oh, I'm gonna really suck at this job because I sucked at previous jobs, or I'm not going to achieve my goals this time around because I didn't achieve my goal in the past. So you're kind of reinforcing your present situation based on your past experiences. Don't use the past to reinforce negative thoughts. Instead, use the present moment to decide what you want to think and to deal with future issues in the present moment. You can live in the present moment by really grounding yourself with your five senses. So touching the things around you, smelling the scents around you, seeing things very vividly for what they are. And the more you focus on the present, the more headspace you're going to free up, which will then allow you to think about whether or not the thoughts that you're thinking of are actually serving you or are actually harming you. So my beautiful friends, I hope that this video was helpful. Let me know which tip resonated with you, or if you have certain strategies that have worked for you, because I need all of them. We are all so capable of making our brains work for us instead of against us. And I just want to emphasize that all of these tips and strategies, they take time, right? We can't just practice them once and then expect them to work in our favor. This is a lifelong practice, and we just have to continue to implement so that eventually that negative bee that's living inside of our head just quiets down or completely shuts up, if that's even possible. So let's break those old habits, those old ways of thinking little by little every single day, and hopefully you find yourself having a lot more mental clarity. So that's all I have to say. I hope you all have a beautiful day or evening, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.